Good afternoon, Facebook family. We are excited to have you here with us today. Thank you for taking time off your lunch break, your coffee break, or your whatever break to be here with us for this midday virtual webinar. We have action-packed information for you. It is election 2024. I know you all are probably as tired of the postcards and the commercials as I am. But this is important, y'all. We got to keep fighting the fight. We have to push, get through all the rhetoric, and get you some factual information. And that's what we're here for today with Flint Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm a proud president, Tamar Swain, and I have with you today Jasmine Hall. She's our social action co-chair and moderator. Anita Waters, our fabulous social action chair. And last but certainly not least, we have Domonique Clemons, Genesee County Clerk and Register of Deeds with his hot red jacket on. He gonna let me borrow that jacket. But Facebook family, I'm going to hand over the baton to our fabulous team. And I hope you enjoy. Ask as many questions as you would like, because we're here to serve.
Thank you, Sora President. And once again, welcome to everyone out there in Facebook, watching live or catching the replay. Feel free to drop in the chat the word replay if you are watching this later on. We hope you like this post and share it with a friend. Once again, we have Sora Waters monitoring the chat on Facebook, so feel free to ask questions if you are joining our live. With that, I will introduce our featured guest, Clerk Domonique Clemons. Clerk Clemons was appointed as Genesee County Clerk, Register of Deeds on December 6th of 2022. Born and raised in Flint, Michigan, Domonique attended the best high school, Flint Southwestern High School, and holds a public policy degree from Michigan State University, as well as a master's degree in political management from George Washington University. Domonique previously served as Genesee County Commissioner for District 4 and chairperson for the Board of Commissioners. While on the board, he championed many projects and initiatives such as the creation of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, crime prevention, blight elimination, and much more at the local and state level. We are so lucky to be joined by you in your role as Genesee County Clerk, also known as the Chief Election Official, helping to ensure a free and fair election. So welcome and thank you for your service.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to get right into it.
Yes. Please share any additional information about yourself and a little bit about what the clerk's role is in an election.
Sure. Well, thank you. Again, my name's Domonique Clemons. I have the honor of serving as your Genesee County Clerk and Register of Deeds. And it is a big office. It's a big position. As Jasmine mentioned, my background's been varied in working in different sectors of nonprofit and government. But I was first appointed to this role as County Clerk and Register of Deeds in December of 2022 for a partial term when my predecessor resigned for office and was appointed by our circuit court judges, a vote of the judges. And in that, we actually made history. I am the first African-American to hold the position of County Clerk in the history of Genesee County. And I also happen to be the youngest county clerk in the state of Michigan. So it's really cool. And a lot of times folks celebrate that I'm the first person of color to hold this position in our county. And I always tell folks that we shouldn't be celebrating that. We should actually be a little bit ashamed of that it's 2024 and we're just now getting our first person of color into this office. And it had to be appointed first rather than the traditional elected side, which I am on the ballot this year unopposed, so I'll be holding this for another 4-year term. But that is just one of the examples of our community not using our power, which is our vote, and taking that action every day. And I am so laser focused on elections and making sure that we enshrine that right to vote for everybody. My ancestors and the ancestors of many people have fought, has shed blood, sweat, and tears for this right to vote. We had to change laws to get this right to vote. And now today we see folks willingly choosing not to vote because they don't want to do their homework or they aren't in love with one of the candidates that are running. The clerk's office, we are the chief election administrator for the county. So we provide a lot of support and oversight to the city and township clerks who are independently elected or appointed. We do a lot of the pre and the post of elections, where your local clerks handle a lot of the day-to-day handing ballots to voters, manning the polling locations. But outside of that election side, which we're going to talk a lot about, the clerk's office also handles a whole lot of other things. I am the clerk of the circuit court, overseeing our court records in Genesee County. We oversee vital records, that's birth certificates, death certificates, marriage licenses, gun licenses, notary registrations, and small business DBAs. And then also our property division side of things, where we handle the deeds and mortgages and liens and all of the recording of property records throughout the county. So it certainly is a big job, but my passion certainly lies in the election side of things, and I'm really hopeful that folks are going to get out and exercise that right to vote this fall.
Thank you, thank you. It sounds like you do quite a bit, and I'm learning quite a bit myself. As you know, and as you alluded to, we are in the midst of a presidential election. So many voters have already voted absentee, and then we know early in-person voting starts in Michigan on October 26th for the November 5th election. So there's a lot of excitement in the air and also quite a few concerns. You talked about, the right to vote. So Clerk Clemons, what is at stake in this election and why does it matter for us?
So we've heard it said the last couple of elections, but I do believe it's true that this is one of the most important elections of our life. And I'm not going to get into telling folks who to vote for. That is not my job. We'll go into the mechanics of how to cast that vote. But the reality is, no matter what side that you are supporting, there are a lot of questions that are at stake in this election. Questions like, do women have the right themselves to choose to have abortion or not? Should things like diversity, equity, inclusion be taught at our colleges and universities? What direction do we want our community to go forward as far as economic development? The international crises that are happening around the world with Palestine and Israel, what role does the United States play in all of that? Now, while we as voters aren't directly voting on each one of those issues, we are going to be selecting a candidate at the top of the ticket as President of the United States, all the way down to our local school board members that will have a say in that. And who we put into these positions is incredibly important. The president over the next 4 years will very likely have the opportunity to nominate a new Supreme Court justice that will determine the direction that the court goes in enshrining and protecting our rights, in limiting certain things and expanding other things. So those are all choices that we as voters have to make. And the one thing that I'll say is, with so much at stake in this election, regardless what side of the aisle you lay on, who are you supporting, the thing I've really been talking to voters about a lot lately is that when we go out to cast our ballot, there is no such thing as a perfect person. There's no such thing as a perfect elected official. There's no such thing as a perfect candidate. What that means is that we're probably not going to fall in love with one of the candidates on the ballot. We're not going to agree with every single stance that they have, but instead, rather, we are making a strategic move, a chess move, if you will, of what direction do we want the future of our community and our country to go into over the next 4 years. And as such, we have to pick the person that we think might be able to do the best of that job. In some cases, some people think it's picking the lesser of two bads. If that's the decision you need to make, some people think it's the difference between choosing a good and a bad, or some people think it's two goods and which one's better. But neither candidate for president or any office is going to meet everyone's check boxes. So we've got to do our best to do our homework to know which of these candidates we're supporting and get that information out. There's a lot of ways to get information now. Some of that is definitely biased. You can certainly go to the candidates' web pages. Almost every candidate up the ballot and down are going to have their own web page. We've been inundated with the ads and the text messages and the mailing. I know I have. But to get information that's not biased, I always encourage folks to go to the League of Women Voters, vote411.org, that sends out a survey to all candidates with the same questions, and they post the exact response of those candidates, not something that has been tested to see what's going to play well in the media, not something that is going to be tested to see what's going to enrage people the most and spark the most emotion, but what's the actual work that these people are going to do when they're in office.
Thank you. Thank you. You talked about so many things that are at stake in this election. And I love that you mentioned, not every issue is on the ballot, but there's candidates on the ballot who will help influence some of these issues. We have heard, of course, about the presidential race, but what other races might be on the ballot?
So this is a big ballot in Genesee County and throughout the state of Michigan. It's physically big. It's a 20-inch ballot, two-sided ballot, but there is a lot on this ballot. We all know at the top of the ticket is President of the United States. And it might be surprising to some folks. There are more than 2 candidates running for president. We actually have, I believe it's now 6 or 7 candidates on our ballot for president between Green Party and U.S. Taxpayer Party. So you have a lot of choices. There's some folks that have no party affiliation. But we all hear the Democrat, Republican, those are the 2 main parties. We also see, and it's being shared on your screen, all of these other races that we have are federal elected officials in Congress, the U.S. Senate, the congressional district. Here in Flint and Genesee County, the 8th congressional district is one of the most competitive congressional districts in the state right now. When Dan Kildee retired, it became an open seat. It's a very close seat between Democrat, Republican. You've got Kristen McDonald-Rivet on the Democratic side, Paul Young on the Republican side, and a couple of third-party candidates also running. So that race is really going to be a toss-up and could set the direction for the entire U.S. House of Representatives. The same is true. We have a very close U.S. Senate race that could affect the direction of the entire U.S. Senate. Of course, the 2 frontrunners there being Alyssa Slotkins and Mike Rogers. Throughout the state, every single member of the state House of Representatives is up on the ballot this year. Those are 2-year terms. In Genesee County, we have 7 different state representatives that represent pieces of our county. The city of Flint in its entirety is represented by 1 state representative. That's the 70th district. There's 1 Democrat running, 1 Republican running, so voters will have that choice to make as well. But then more locally on your ballot, you will see all of the county-wide positions. So your county clerk, your county treasurer, your county prosecutor, your county sheriff, your county drain commissioner, those county-wide positions are all on your ballot as well as a district county position, which is your county commissioner, and they're like the legislative body for the county. They set the budget for the county. These county positions are incredibly important. I'm a little bit biased because I'm in one of those county positions, but I always tell folks it's one of the highest levels of government where it's still directly involved with the people. You're a member of Congress, you're a member of the U.S. Senate. Sure, they care about our community, they are passionate, but they're not going to be in the community every single day. They're going to be in Washington, D.C. doing the work for us. Your countywide officials, they're a little bit of a higher level, but are still in your community every single day, actively doing the work. Now, outside of that, there are some cities and townships that have races. The city of Flint, their normal council races and mayoral races are not this year. There are a couple of special elections happening in the city of Flint. But the other thing I really want to point people's attention to is that nonpartisan section of the ballot. So all that stuff we just talked about is partisan. You're going to vote for somebody hopefully based on the person and what they stand for. But some folks are going to vote for someone just because they've got a certain letter by their name. They're a Democrat or they're Republican. That's fine, and that's your choice. And you can even vote straight party. Click the straight party box and you'll vote for all the Democrats. Vote for the straight R and you'll vote for all the Republicans on the ballot. But if you do that, you have not finished your ballot. You've only voted about half your ballot, because on that 3rd column on the front and the entire back of your ballot is our nonpartisan section. These are really, really important positions. So we're talking our courts, and we have a lot of different levels of courts here in the state of Michigan. Our state Supreme Court justices are on the ballot. They are elected, unlike the U.S. Supreme Court, and we have 2 different seats that are up on the state Supreme Court. One is a partial term. Kyra Harris Bolden was appointed to fill a vacancy, and now she is on the ballot to retain that seat. And she's running against a gentleman, and both of them were actually, while it's a nonpartisan position, they are both endorsed by a party. Kyra Harris Bolden was endorsed by the Democratic Party. She is the first ever Black female state Supreme Court justice we've ever had. And Patrick William O'Grady, who is an attorney who has been endorsed by the Republican Party. They are both in a race for state Supreme Court against each other. And then similarly, there's a full 8-year term for Supreme Court that Kimberly Ann Thomas, the Democratic endorsed candidate, is running against Andrew Fink, the Republican endorsed candidate. But again, even though they've been endorsed, this is a nonpartisan section of the ballot. So you have to fill that out even if you vote straight party. We also have our Court of Appeals. One of them is to vote for 2 people, and there are 2 people running. One of them is vote for 1, and there are 2 people running. So I always encourage folks to do some homework about these appeals judges. A lot of folks don't interact very often with the appeals court, but if you have a decision in a local court and you don't like the ruling, that's where that goes, is the appeals court. Closer to home, you do have our circuit court as well as our district court has some seats up. In the circuit court, there are a couple of incumbent judges who are running to hold their seat. Elizabeth Kelly, Brian Piquel, and Judge Hannibal. They are all running for seats where they are going to win the seat. One is vote for two and there are two running. One is vote for one and there's one running. But we do have a competitive circuit court race here in Genesee County as well. Nancy Chinonis is running against Mary Hood, both of which are very accomplished attorneys in our community. Mary Hood actually serving now as a court magistrate and has a lot of experience, as does Nancy. But that's a decision that we are going to have to make on selecting one of those two people for a new judicial seat for the seat of Judge Bell, who is retiring at the end of this year. We have a probate judge. That is a vote for one, and there's one. And then our district court, depending on where you live. If you live in Flint, you have a district court seat where there are two judges that are running for two positions. So again, you've got not really a whole lot of choice to make there. But then down for our friends and family in the south side of the county, you have a district court seat up that is Jeffrey Clother, who's running against another candidate, Amanda Odette, down in the Fenton Grand Blanc district court area. Then once you've done all the courts, you're still not done with your ballot. There's still more. This is a big ballot. We've got school boards. Almost every one of our local school boards has a race on the ballot. The Flint Board of Education is no exception to that. They have one seat up. Two people are running, Linda Booth and Chad Schlosser. Linda's currently serving on the board. Chad is a newcomer. That's going to be a very competitive race. Both have some really great ideas of where they want to take our community. And then we see the same thing on Carmen Ainsworth School Board and Grand Blanc and all across the county. And then a big one with a lot of candidates that people really need to do some homework about is the Mott Community College Board of Trustees. Community colleges boards are elected, and the Mott Community College Board district is actually a really large district. It's the entirety of Genesee County, so that includes all of Flint, but it also includes portions of Shiawassee County, Lapeer County, Oakland County, and Livingston County. So a lot of folks will be voting. I believe there's 14 candidates on the ballot for that Mott Community College trustee position, and you can select 3 of them. So there's a lot of research folks are going to have to do to narrow that down to 3. Some of the individuals who are running are incumbents. Jeffrey Swanson and Andy Everman are both currently on the Mott Community College Board. Ann Figueroa was formerly on the board, lost an election, is now running again, and all of the other candidates are running for the first time, all with a mix of different experiences, different identities, and different backgrounds. So a lot of candidates to choose from there. Then still talking about schools, our 3 big universities in the state of Michigan are public universities: Wayne State University, Michigan State University, where is my alma mater, and the University of Michigan, that other school down in Ann Arbor. They all have their board of trustees elections as well. Each one of those is to elect 2. That is a partisan race, so individuals will be choosing Democrat, Republican, or third-party candidates for those races. A couple of our communities in the county do have some ballot proposals on their ballot, some local millages. Carmen Ainsworth Schools, for example, they are asking for 0 tax increase to continue collecting the millage that they're already collecting. And we have a couple of other small communities throughout Genesee County that have questions on their ballots too. So that is a lot. There's a lot on this ballot. What I always encourage folks, regardless if you vote straight party or not, you're not going to forget that you need to vote for someone for president of the United States. You're going to come in and you know who you're going to vote for. I encourage people, start on the back and on the bottom of your ballot. Read the ballot proposal first, because there's a lot of words and it gets confusing. Use that brain energy first for that. Then do these school board races, these judges, these nonpartisan races where you might have to think a little bit more, remember that research you did, and then flip over to the front and do those big races. You probably know who you're going to vote for president. You're thinking about some of these other races. Bottom, top, back to front is a great way where you won't forget to fill out the entirety of your ballot.
Thank you so much for that. And I love that you mentioned in the partisan section, you can just check, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, whatever. But when you get to that nonpartisan section, make sure you're really paying attention, doing your homework, in advance. So thank you so much. And I did pull this up, just michigan.gov/vote. So if you want to look at your sample ballot, please check the Facebook comments for that link.
And that's such a great resource, that michigan.gov/vote. I'm probably going to say it a few times during our time together, because you can check what's on your ballot at that website. You can check if you are registered to vote at that website. And if you are registered to vote and need to know where your voting location is, michigan.gov/vote is the place to go. If you say, I'm not voting on election day because I'm going to do a mail-in ballot, I am too busy on Tuesday, then go to michigan.gov/vote to see if your ballot's been accepted back by the clerk's office or if it's still in the mail. That is your one-stop shop for everything related to elections, michigan.gov/vote.
Thank you. Now, we talked about all of these things that are on the ballot, and we know that Genesee County, Flint specifically, is one of those areas where we sometimes don't have the highest voter turnout. So can you just speak to what voter turnout has looked like in recent elections in Genesee County and in Flint?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's a lot of different factors that are in place to that now. If we look back just a few months ago to this summer, we had the August primary election. This was the partisan nominating primaries that set the stage for what's on the ballot now in November. For all of those local races, everyone of one party ran, everyone of another party ran, and we narrowed it down. A very important election, and there was some special elections that happened there. The city of Flint, less than 14% of the voting population in the city of Flint turned out in August. We've got to do better than that. It's as simple as that. Countywide, we did a little bit better, but not great. We had about 25% turnout. And I'll say we always see it's a lower turnout in August than November, especially a presidential year. But those midterm elections are just as important as these big general elections. If you look at 4 years ago, the last time we had a presidential election on the ballot, we had countywide about 65% voter turnout. That was just over 222,000 people across Genesee County. And the turnout in Flint was even lower than that 65%. The thing is, we know in Genesee County, and especially in the city of Flint, elections, especially at the local level, can be determined by one vote. Just this August, the south side of the county, Argentine Township, the farthest south part of the county, they had a supervisor's race that 4 people were running. The person that won first place had 3 votes more than the person in second place.
3 votes.
3 votes. And the person in second place and the person in third place were tied. If 2 people would have voted differently, you could have had a 3-way tie. If 2 people would have voted differently, a different person could have won the race. That is how incredibly important every single vote is. Last year, there was a special election for the 9th ward of the city of Flint. Less than 1,500 people turned out for that race. It was a very close race. The 9th ward race before that was even less people. We've seen city council races where 300-400 people turn out and decide who's going to be on city council. And regardless of what you think about the current members of city council and the direction that the city council is in right now, it's primarily because we haven't done our work to turn out and vote. If we get 14% of Flint to turn out and vote in November, we don't have a leg to stand on when we're upset about what's going on at the city level, at the state level, at the federal level, because we haven't done our work. We haven't put in that work to vote. And voting has never been easier than it is now. There are more ways to vote in Michigan than there has ever been before. Of course, individuals that would like to can go out and vote on election day. Tuesday, November 5th, polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. As long as you are in line by 8 p.m., you will get to vote. And there are polling locations throughout Genesee County. The city of Flint has 29 precincts and a handful of polling locations. And if you want to find out where to vote, that's michigan.gov/vote once again. But let's say you don't want to go on election day. We now have 9 days of early voting. As Jasmine mentioned, that starts on October 26th, so this Saturday, Sunday, and all next week, and then the weekend after. You can go to your city or your township hall. So you can go down to Flint City Hall. You can cast your vote anytime during the day, get it out of the way. You just don't want to leave your house. It's starting to get cold. You don't want to put up with people. You don't want to deal with traffic. You can still vote. There's still time to get a mail-in ballot. If you're going to request that mail-in ballot, you need to do it soon, especially if they're going to mail you that ballot. You can always go to the Flint City Clerk's office, even now, today, go request a ballot. They can hand it to you in person. You can go home and fill it out. And I would really say at this point, with those mail-in ballots, you can mail it back. I want to say after this weekend, though, legally you can, but I wouldn't recommend it. Our mail, goes to Pontiac and has to come back. So if you've got a mail-in ballot in your hand, and a lot of folks still do, or you're thinking about requesting one, once you get it, drop it in one of the drop boxes throughout the city of Flint, or you can drop it off at the clerk's office. Or if you're out and about in 9 days, you can take it to early voting site, or you can take it to your polling location on election day. But really, there's not an excuse not to be voting. There's so many options to do that. And we've seen in Genesee County already, 88,000 people, 88,000 and some change, have already received a ballot. And out of those 88,000, 59% of those people have already turned their ballot in. Their vote has been cast, and it will be counted on election day. City of Flint, we've got 11,900 and some change, so just under 12,000 people have already got their ballots, and we have about 7,000 that have turned their ballots in. So we've got a lot of folks that have ballots. Y'all got to get it turned back in, where the clock is starting to tick. And I want to make sure that folks that do have a ballot, mail it in. And if you don't, that you're making a plan to vote, no matter which one of these methods you choose. Just make sure that you have a plan. And this year, we mentioned how important this election is. It's not enough to just have a plan for how you're getting yourself to the polls. Have a plan on who you talking to, too. You calling your neighbor, you calling your auntie, you calling your kids, your mom, your dad, whoever it may be, and make sure that they've got a plan to vote, too, because we need every single person, every eligible resident of the city of Flint in Genesee County above the age of 18 needs to do their civic duty and cast their vote in November so that we can determine the direction we want our community to go in. The effects of who we do vote for or the effects of not voting are very clear in the city of Flint, right? We can talk for days about issues about crime. We can talk about the water crisis. That is a direct impact of us not voting, quite frankly. Because we didn't turn out in these midterm elections, we got elected officials who poisoned our entire city. So we've got to do better. We've got to get that vote out there. Whatever it takes, we need to make sure our friends and family are doing their work.
Thank you. Thank you. So for anybody who might be joining right now, we are with Clerk Clemons, Genesee County Clerk, Register of Deeds. And you heard it here first. There has never been an easier time than now to vote. As Clerk Clemons said, he recommends, mailing in your ballot, but after this weekend, go ahead and, drop it off at a drop box or even, drop it off on election day, but make sure you get that ballot submitted and counted. Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the Facebook chat and we will address those in just a bit. I know one thing you talked about was that Genesee County, 88,000 people have already requested absentee ballots and 59% of them have been returned. You said for Flint it was 11,000 absentee ballots requested, and what percentage have been returned?
So we're at 61% return, so 7,302 to be exact. As of this morning, were returned. I'm guessing the mail has run since this morning, and we probably have a few more ballots in, but about 7,300 have been returned.
Thank you. And for anyone who might be hesitant about voting or just has not made a voting plan yet, what can we do to encourage people to go to the polls or vote on or before election day, specifically millennials and Gen Z? What can be done to encourage higher voter turnout in those demographics?
The first thing is we've got to talk to everyone, this conversation that we're having now, about just how important your vote is. I think people, especially young folks, need to understand the work that went into giving us this right and that we have to stand and protect on that right. But we also need to point out that, quite frankly, and as a young person, a young elected official, one of the conversations I have with other young folks is the decisions that our elected officials make now, especially those long-term decisions, we are going to live with those effects. I love our senior saints and our elders in our community, but they're not going to be here 30, 40 years living with the consequences of what elected officials are doing now. I could talk for ages about the need of getting more young people into office, but we do have to invest in that. There are a ton of organizations that, outside of just the access to different ways to vote, are trying to reduce barriers even more. I know MTA is working on providing some transportation options for folks on election day. I am working with some individuals to provide rides to the poll as well at some of our senior centers and community centers in the city of Flint, working on partnering with Hasselbring and the Brennan Center and the Latinx Center in Burston to, during the early vote, send transportation to these places, bring people to City Hall, let them cast their vote, and get home. So there's a lot of tools making it easier for people to vote, but we've got to do that heart work, that inside work of encouraging them, right? We can have every bus in the city of Flint driving folks to City Hall. We can line the streets with dollar bills directing you to City Hall, right? But if people don't take it upon themselves to vote, then they're not going to have that. And I think the biggest thing is that we have to have conversations about why it matters, about why it's important, about what is at stake. I know as a young person, sometimes it's hard to care. It's hard because it doesn't feel like the people elected care. It feels like no matter who's elected, things don't tend to be getting better. But not voting is not that solution. There's no change that's going to happen if we don't vote. The only time that we're going to get change is by voting, is by getting new, fresh blood, or even folks that have been in the community for a long time who are doing the work, making sure that they stay in office. That is my biggest thing. But there are, like I mentioned, just tons of community organizations. I mean, this Saturday I can think of off the top of my head 4 different events throughout the community that is going to be providing food and music and fun and conversations around voting. I'm speaking at a few of them to just get that information out. We're trying to make voting appealing. We want to make it fun. We can't pay you to vote, but we certainly can make sure you have transportation. We can do things like have get out the vote rallies. And if you are a young person, and I'm betting if you're involved with the Deltas, you are already involved with this community. Spread that community involvement to your friends. You all know somebody, and it doesn't just mean young folks, older folks in our community as well. You all know somebody that is sitting at home and saying, I'm just not going to vote, it doesn't matter. Tell them your story. Tell them why you're voting, why it makes a difference to you, what policy impact something has had on your life, especially that local city, school board, and county level.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. So many ways to encourage people, especially young people, to vote. You mentioned transportation. You mentioned, opportunities to gather for get out the vote. I know as Deltas, we are doing quite a bit on Saturday to celebrate the first day of early voting. So we'll be also providing rides that day in partnership with a few churches, and we'll have a day party, just encouraging voters to get on out there, have fun, talk about the issues, and just celebrate the fact that we are able to vote early. We've charged each one of our sorority sisters to, find 10 voters, be responsible for making sure 10 voters cast their ballots, whether they vote absentee, whether they vote early in person, or whether they vote on election day. And we invite the public to do the same. Find 10 voters and make sure that they vote. And thank you so much, Clerk Clemons. My next question is about some of the important deadlines. Any deadlines or tips that we should kind of keep in mind as we make our voting plans? Is it too late to register?
Sure. So the biggest deadline that everyone needs to know in their head is 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 5th. That is the big deadline. That is the deadline to get a ballot in. If you want to drop a ballot in the drop box, you have until 8 p.m. on election day. If you want to have some interaction with the clerk's office and are getting a ballot there, 8 p.m. on election day. If you're voting in person, 8 p.m. on election day. If you need to register to vote, you're a new voter, you've just moved into this community, or you've just turned 18, the absolute deadline is 8 p.m. on election day. We have same-day voter registration in Michigan. You can register to vote in person. At this point, the deadline to register to vote by mail or online has already passed. That was on Monday. So from this point forward, if you are not registered to vote, you do have to do that in person at your city or your township clerk's office. And you can do that again all the way until 8 p.m. on election day. So that is the biggest date that we have to have in mind. The other thing is, as I mentioned, it's not a hard date, it's not a deadline, but highly encourage if you're turning in a mail-in ballot after this weekend, go ahead and put it in a drop box or bring it in person, just to be sure. Because if you do put your ballot in the mailbox and it arrives after election day, unfortunately, that vote won't count unless it's part of the military and overseas ballot programs, which they do have a couple of extra days, but it still has to be postmarked prior to election day. And then, of course, we've already talked about it. This Saturday starts early voting, October 26th, at every city and township hall across Genesee County.
Thank you. Thank you. So we've heard it directly from the clerk's office. 8 p.m. election day is the deadline to vote, deadline to register to vote, deadline to have your ballot submitted. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. One concern that many voters have voiced just in the most recent months is that the precincts lines for City of Flint has changed since our last presidential election, and how the communication may not have properly reached voters. So Clerk Clemons, what could be done for this election and for future elections just to ensure that voters are aware of their precincts and that there's more robust communication around the elections?
Absolutely. So polling locations in the city of Flint have changed. Some of those precinct locations have changed. Those precinct locations are set by the city clerk's office. When we've seen this reduction from years and years ago where there were over 60 polling locations to 40 precincts, I should say, because some polling location has multiple precincts, to now there are 29 precincts in the city of Flint. So the precincts have changed. That means your polling location might have changed. Now, what was supposed to have happened is the city clerk was supposed to send every voter an updated voter registration card with those new precincts and what the polling location is. I can't say for certain if that was done for everybody or not. And there should have been some communication working with our partners in the media. One of the things that I've been trying to do is to raise awareness, because not only have they changed since the last presidential election, just this year there's been a couple of changes. So the city of Flint made a change in polling locations, 2 of them, because they determined the location that they were at was inadequate, was too small, was not ADA compliant. They did move 2. And I know that there have been community organizations, there have been pastors and members of clergy that have done press conferences to try to raise that awareness. I've worked with media outlets and have asked them on election day to remind folks to check that polling location. Because even if our city clerk did do everything that they were supposed to do, and if they gave out all of that information, you probably got that voter card a year ago. Now, I don't know about everyone on the Zoom, but for me, keeping up with something a year later is a big challenge. I do have my voter card, of course, it's sitting right here on my desk. But a lot of folks don't keep that voter card. And regardless if precincts change or not to your knowledge, everyone should just double check. michigan.gov/vote is where you can check where your polling location is. If you're worried about the precinct changes or not showing up to the right place, then go to City Hall for one of the 9 days of early voting. You don't have to worry about a precinct location or do that mail-in ballot. But there has been changes. I agree. I don't think it's been communicated very well from the city of Flint. I certainly have been having conversations, or have been trying to have conversations, I'll say, to encourage them to do more information sharing. Especially into future elections, to make sure, because it's going to happen again. And legally, it has to happen. Every time we have a census, we have to change the wards. And every couple of elections, the precincts change. One of the big reasons for the precinct change this year was a change in state law. Prior, precincts had to be less than 2,500 voters, 2,499 to be exact. Now precincts can be up to 5,000 people per precinct, because so many people vote by mail, because so many people are taking part of early voting. The last presidential election, even in August of this year, almost half of the voters in the city of Flint voted by mail. So the state has made those precincts larger to save in a way, to save money. Now, where that balance comes in and the city needs to make some really strategic decisions for the next election is, yes, it saves the city a ton of money, and I get that they're strapped for cash to have less polling locations. But at what cost to the voters? It might be saving the pocketbook for the city, but is it making it harder for individuals to vote? Are polling locations spread out in a way that it's hard to get to? Are they not on bus lines? But these are all conversations that our Flint City Council and our Flint City Clerk need to have. So if you know that you have a hard time getting to the poll, or you've been negatively affected by the change in the precincts, the conversation should be had with your member of City Council or the City Clerk's office to encourage them to maybe in the next election adjust where some of those locations are, or to perhaps add a couple of more. I'm not saying that they will add more. I'm not saying that they won't take away more. But we have to at least make sure our voice is heard in making sure that there are adequate numbers and adequate support in those that we have. I think if you have 29 precincts and we stay at that number, that's fine, but we've got to be strategic about where they're at and making sure that there are accessible places. I know my office, because I feel like there has not been the best transparency at all times from the city of Flint. On our county website, we've put up some additional resources specifically that show the ward maps that are being used for a lot of the recalls that are happening in special elections, because wards have changed, but those ward change actually don't go into effect until the next city council race. We've got a map on our website, because some people are visual learners, that shows visually where each polling location is in the city of Flint. Many of those polling locations are for 2 or 3 precincts. We also have a list of all of the recalls and special elections that are happening for folks that are visual. I know the city of Flint, or at least they said they've posted a list of all of their polling locations and precincts. And then again, I can't say it enough times, mi.gov/vote. And what's special about that is you don't have to know what ward you live in. You don't have to know the number of your precinct. You just need to know your address. You can type in your address and it'll say you live in this ward and this precinct and this is where you go to vote. And here's what your ballot looks like. So it totally prepares you there. And you don't even actually have to put in your own address. There's a spot where you can just put in your driver's license number and it does all that work for you.
Wow.
So that's where we can get that information out. And I am telling everyone in every event I go to go and look, even if you've been at the same polling location for 50 years, just go and double check because it might have changed.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So it sounds like we have quite a bit of work to do just to make sure people are informed and continue to be informed, because this precinct change is not new and it's not going away. So we just want to keep up that robust communication. Thank you so much, Clerk Clemons. Once again, if anyone is just now joining us, we are joined by our Genesee County Clerk and Register of Deeds, Domonique Clemons, as we talk about voter education in this upcoming election. We invite you to drop any questions that you may have in the Facebook Live chat, and we'll ask one more question of Clerk Clemons, and then we will get to audience questions. So this conversation around communication brings us to a larger conversation about just communication, misinformation. We believe that there are concerted efforts to dissuade and misinform voters, and they tend to ramp up around election time. So once again, where should voters go to find legitimate information regarding the election and candidates, and where should they not go?
Yes, and there's a concerted effort to spread disinformation. It seems to be most prevalent in places like Flint and Detroit, communities that are predominantly Black and brown. You will probably see somewhere posted online, you might get a text message as late as election day that says, don't forget to vote on Wednesday, November 6th, right?
Wow.
You might look at that and it looks innocent, right? They're reminding you to vote. That's not voter suppression, but they're intentionally giving you the wrong election date. They want to confuse you because, again, they know how important our vote is, and they want to stop that vote from happening. So misinformation is out there. First and foremost, when we talk about actual election day, per state and federal law, the election is the first Tuesday after a Monday in November. In order for that to change, a court has to order it to be different. If there is a national disaster, if there's an emergency on election day and polls have to close early, or they can't close, or they open late, A judge has to extend those hours. A judge has to set a different date. So if you hear anyone say that the election is any other time besides Tuesday, November 5th, the first Tuesday after Monday in November from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., tell them, show me the judge's orders. There's also a lot of misinformation going on about candidates or about polling locations. The best place to get your information is directly from a source, from a government source. Call the city clerk's office, call my office, call the Secretary of State's office, or look at our websites. Michigan.gov/vote, I can't say it enough times. The county clerk's website, Genesee County mi.gov/department/county clerk, or the City of Flint clerk's website. All of that will be a spot for information to happen. If somebody forwards you something along, that doesn't mean that it is or isn't true, but we're in that era where we've got to do some extra homework, some extra due diligence. And we're aware that AI now can create fake flyers, they can create fake information that makes it look official. So if it's not coming directly from an official channel, you should question its authenticity.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So you heard clerk's office, you heard michigan.gov/vote. Earlier in this conversation, we talked about going directly to candidates' websites. Yes, you will get biased information from candidates, but you at least hear what they're saying. And also the League of Women Voters, Vote 411. So, finding reputable sources is a great idea. I want to invite Sora Waters into the conversation to bring any audience questions. Welcome.
Thank you, Soror. We do have a couple of questions in our comment section. One being, what is the difference between the electoral vote and the popular vote?
That's a really good question. It is a little bit of a complicated process that is set up in our U.S. Constitution from the founding of America. First and foremost, the only race out of all of them that we even talk about electoral vote is President of the United States. Every other race is a popular vote. In Michigan, we are a majority vote. We don't do runoffs. You don't have to get a certain percentage to win. Whoever has got the most votes will be our member of the U.S. Senate. Whoever's got the most votes will be our county commissioner. But for the presidency, the way that it works is each state gets a number of electoral votes. And those electoral votes are actual people. They are electors. Now, those electors are pledged and tied to whatever party they are. So there are Democratic electors for Kamala Harris. There are Republican electors for Trump. And the way that it works is in Michigan, whoever gets the most votes in Michigan, whoever gets the popular vote in Michigan, will get all of our electoral votes. We get one electoral vote per congressional district and one for each of our U.S. Senate seats. So in Michigan, I believe that number is 16. So our 16 electoral votes will go to whoever gets the most votes in Michigan. And that is the case in each and every state. So you hear that and you go, well, it sounds like whoever's winning the most votes gets those electoral votes. That's a popular vote. Where that differs is because bigger states and smaller states. So a smaller state might only have 3 electoral votes, or a bigger state like California has 30, 40 plus electoral votes. So if somebody, even though there are millions of people in California and millions of people in New York, while overall across the country, somebody could get the most votes for president, they might not win because it's a state-by-state electoral system. Some folks like that system. They say it protects the rights of small states. It protects the rights of rural states. Some folks don't like that system, saying it should be one person, one vote. My vote in Michigan should carry just as much weight as a single vote in Vermont, North Dakota, or California. And there is effort from some folks to try to get changes in our Constitution to get rid of the Electoral College. Either way, we do have it in place for this election, like it or not. So while it's important that we get everyone out to vote, especially for those local levels, if you've got friends in other states, that's where that really comes into play on who becomes president of the United States on Inauguration Day in January. It's going to be determined by that electoral vote, which will actually happen in December here in the state of Michigan at our state capitol in Lansing.
Very good, and thank you for that answer. One additional question from our comment section. Um, why should we be concerned who is running for boards that are such as the Mott Community College Board of Trustees? Why should we be concerned about those individuals running for those positions?
And we hear that question a lot from individuals that say, well, I didn't go to the school and I don't have any kids in school. Why do I care about a school board race? Because a school board race is more than just the students that are presently in there. Who you have on a school board is going to set policies on the property of the schools. Let's talk about Flint schools. We know there are a lot of abandoned old Flint school buildings that are owned by the Flint Board of Education. Those school board members vote on if that building gets demolished, if that building gets sold, if that building sits there empty, if that building gets turned into a school or other program. So if you're tired of looking at a vacant school building, that's the reason why you need to care about who to vote for a local school board. Our community college district, Mott Community College. I didn't go to a community college. I don't have kids. Why is that an important thing? For a couple of reasons. They offer a lot of programs for a lot of people, and having good education systems, both K-12 and community college and higher ed, really set a lot for the economy of our community. To make Genesee County a place where people want to come and live, to have a family, to grow, they're going to look at that education system. The better the education system is, the more taxable income, the taxable value, of your property likely will be, right? Places that have good schools, usually the houses cost a lot more. So that's money in your pocket if you own your property, what your house is worth. But our community college, for example, they're doing trade and vocational programs. They're doing all sorts of things in the community to spread education, to have programs for elders to go back to school for a new skill or just to enrich themselves more. There is a lot going on with these schools, so it's very important who we elect to these school districts, even if we don't have students in the district or aren't an alum from that district. It's because it has an effect on the community and shaping the direction that we want to go as a community.
Thank you. Sarah Hall.
Well, thank you for those questions. We really appreciate them. And we appreciate those responses, just informing everyone. As we come to a close, I would like to just offer Clerk Clemons an opportunity if there's anything else that you want to share with voters. And then we'll have a couple of announcements and we'll wrap.
Absolutely. I again just want to thank you all for having me on today and to share some information. We covered a lot of ground, but to summarize all of it is your vote is your voice and your voice is your power. Every single vote matters. Every single vote counts. We've already talked about how close elections can be. If we look historically in the city of Flint was the first city in America to pass a fair housing ordinance. And that was set by just the majority, just one vote on city council made us be the first city of progress. Looking a little bit more negatively, the governing Congress in Germany elected Adolf Hitler to be their leader by one vote. One vote has the power to change the entire trajectory of history for a community, for the nation, and for even the world. So I just implore everyone to use their power to be that one vote, and let's together make history and determine the direction that we want our communities to go in.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we so appreciate you taking your time, Clerk Clemons, to speak with us and to speak with our voters and our audience. Once again, to everyone, this is a reminder, November 5th is election day, but voting is happening now. You can vote absentee. As we said, October 26th is the first day of early in-person voting. And Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, along with our partners, are providing rides to the polls. So our Souls to the Polls initiative will be happening on October 26th. You can sign up for a ride. using the link in the Facebook chat, bit.ly/FAC souls to the polls, and that is all lowercase. We will be doing door knocking that morning. We'll be waving and encouraging voters outside of City Hall to go and stop in and vote. And then you can also meet us at Sweetwater down the street from Flint City Hall from 12:30 until 4 p.m. for an early voting day party. Thank you, and thank you for your support.